Welcome to the Home Circle Bromley podcast, a place where voices from our community come together. Today, we are joined by someone who is using the magic of cinema to bring people together and inspire the joy in unexpected places. Rob Carrick. Hi, Rob.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for giving us the time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Rob, you are the visionary behind the Social Cinema Bromley. And I understand and we know that it's a community driven initiative that uses films to connect people across generations, experiences, and abilities. And I'd let you explain the audience as to what social cinema is. But before that, tell us about yourself.
Oh, good question. I'm Rob. I was born and bred in East Kent, down in Margate, and spent most of my life living down that way. And I moved to London back in 2015. I moved in with my partner, and we're still together. Me and him are still together. We moved to Bromley just before the pandemic, before the lockdown. So January 2020, we moved to Bromley. And for the past 5 years, this is where we've lived, kind of the two years or so. The first 2 years of that, we spent in and out of random lockdowns, depending on what tiers we were in and things like that. So I live here in Bromley with him, and we've got three beautiful cats. I work for local government, and I work in a public health capacity, majoring in substance misuse and kind of working with communities around, drug and alcohol treatment for an inner London borough. I don't know really. I'm very much an introvert. As you can see behind me, I adore books. I've always got my head in a book. Films are very much the same way, except the way I see it is a film is something that anyone can watch with you, and you're all seeing the same thing. For me, a book is like a film. It's your own personal film that plays inside your own head. So yeah, always got my head in a book. Look after the cats. Live in Bromley. Love film, which helps. Don't have much of a family. I think sometimes that's probably a blessing. So lead a relatively quiet life, really. And yeah, life is just about committing to work, wanting to commit to supporting the local community, and what seems to be the never-ending cycle of saving for my retirement.
Rob, what is Social Cinema Bromley and what led to the creation of this beautiful cinema?
For people that are listening to this or watching this, if they're based in Bromley, then they're likely to know that approximately a year ago, the Bromley Picture House, which was up by kind of the north end of Bromley High Street, it was about a year ago it was announced that it was going to be closing down. And in terms of cinema in the borough, we have three mainstream cinemas, kind of three and a half. There's an Everyman cinema over in Crystal Palace as well. And when we knew that we were losing the Picture House, which showed some mainstream films that you would see in the mainstream cinemas, but also showed a more art house, sort of slightly niche selection. One of the other things we realised is that we were losing that element of choice around film in Bromley. But even bigger than that was there was a huge movement of people when the Picture House was being announced as closing. There was a huge movement of people that came out in opposition against that. And even though fundamentally we knew that it wouldn't really change the trajectory of that cinema closing, what we quickly recognised is that we would in fact not be losing the community of people that enjoyed that space as a cinema. And what we were hearing from people is how it was more than a cinema. It was a place to go. It was a place to be. It was for them not so much a community hub, but a place they gravitated towards because they could be around other people. They could be around other like-minded people. They could enjoy a film, or even if they weren't enjoying a film, they felt that it was a safe place to be, that wasn't a pub or wasn't a nightclub. And they were really, they were aggrieved at the fact that they were losing that space. So there were various iterations and groups of people that were coming together. But what I was particularly focused on when the dust had settled, the cinema closed on the 1st of August, when the dust had settled from that, I was looking at what we were left with. And we were still left with these people that were suddenly sort of like kind of like movie nomads. That's like, where were they going to go? What were they going to do? And it was me and this other chap. We put our heads together and And through various mechanisms, um, I said to him one day, I said, well, there is something that we could still potentially do in this space. So I created Social Cinema Bromley, and we showed our first film in October last year. So we've not been running for a year yet. But it was very much the philosophy that drove it was that we wanted to be the cinema that went to your community, not the other way round. And, I don't speak ill of places like The View or the Odeons because, they show really good films in a really good setting. But there is still an element of, we're here, we're showing a film, you come or don't come, we don't really care. We wanted to flip that on its head and say, we're going to come into your community and we're going to show films, and we would really love it if you could come along and support that. And we wanted to use the idea and the skill that we had with this to tackle loneliness and social isolation, because we saw that that's what it did for people. It brought people together. So we were very conscious when we were looking at the venues that we didn't just want a black box space with no character or nothing in it. We wanted venues that were buried within communities, that afforded people the opportunity to come before the film and meet new people, enjoy the film, and then stay afterwards and meet new people. So we were very conscientious about the venues that we were selecting. If a venue didn't meet that requirement, then we didn't want to go there. So it kind of grew and it developed, and we made a lot of mistakes. I think there's probably still some mistakes we're making, but we made a lot of mistakes. We were met with this huge wave of kindness, a support from the venues that we were using, which I'll talk more about in a moment or later on. Other Bromley-based initiatives like Bromley Borough Rotary Club, who donated us loads of money. There was this huge movement that we saw. It was huge for us that people. What struck me is that people had faith in what we were doing and was swinging behind it, and we hadn't even shown a film. And we couldn't really understand it. We started this crowdfunder. I was sat there and I was chatting to Kevin, who's the guy that I run this with, and I said, "Well, let's just try it. Let's just ask." And we did. And for us, it was remarkable. We raised about £800. What is it that people are getting behind here? Because at that point, we hadn't done anything. People were just putting their faith in us, and we were completely blown away by the kindness and the love with which we were met. But what that enabled us to do was to gain some traction and to start to really develop who we were and what we were thinking about. And it was very much, in the core of our constitution sits kindness, that we're essentially a kind company. And I know that sounds a bit woolly and a bit vague, but actually it's just in everything we do, we treat people with kindness. We treat our partners with kindness. We treat our customers with kindness. We don't operate in any space around dispute or anxiousness. We want to be able to give back and support the venues and the people that support us. So that's where it came from. That's what it was born out of, was recognizing that there was this need, that people wanted to come together around film. So as I said, we utilized the skills that we had in that. And between Kevin and I, Kevin is very much the technical support. So he'll do all the shenanigans with the screen and the projector and all that stuff I know nothing about. So he's the one that makes the magic happen on the night. And I do all the donkey work behind the scenes, kind of reaching out to partners, thinking about events, connecting with people across the borough. So we complement each other very well in that respect. And when it comes together and we see it happen, then it's the most remarkable thing. And what we say to people, by all means, go to the bigger cinemas. But what we want people to remember is when they either donate or buy a ticket from us, is that money isn't going to fund venture capitalists. What it's doing is the first, if you donate £1 to us, P of that helps us go to put films on. It helps fund what we do, and the other 50p helps us reinvest that back into community organisations. We don't take anything from it. We don't say that with any pride or to be boastful, but we do it because we really enjoy it, and it's because we see the effects of it. We see what it does.
This is life changing for people who are isolated. What has this beautiful venture of yours taught you about human connection?
If I can, what I'm going to do is answer that by opening that a lot wider and then bringing it down to answer your question. What it's taught me is that at their heart, uh, people are generally pretty good beings. they're decent. There's decent people out there that want to support, that want to get behind what we were doing or what other people are doing in that space. It's taught me that it is okay to have faith in what people are doing and to trust what they're doing and to reach out to them and to ask for help. So when it then comes down to that human connection, I think all of us are looking for very similar things, that we want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be a part of something. We want to be in a space that is warm and welcoming, and that we want to feel valid, and we want to feel a part of whatever is happening in that space, and that that people are just as important to this venture as myself or Kevin, the people that come along to the films. And this sounds really trite, and I get a bit cross when I hear it said about huge organizations, when they say, oh, this belongs to all of us, this belongs to everyone. Well, it doesn't really, does it? Because not everyone gets a share of the profits, or gets paid hundreds of thousands of pounds. But I can genuinely say, hand on heart, that with Social Cinema Bromley, it belongs to everybody, because nobody is getting any gain from this financially, but everybody has a stake in it, and everybody that turns up, we all benefit from it in the same way. And be it through human connection, which, because Kevin and I get that as well, or through the
Mm.
joy of having a hobby, or through volunteering, or through choosing which films go on, because, it's not just Kevin and I that set the program. Our customers are people that we've met, have come through. Oh, can you show this film? Can you show that film? Yeah, we can do that. We've done it in the past. We're doing it again, because it's something that belongs to everybody. We don't take anything. We genuinely see it because it's something we enjoy, that we do the work to lay this on for Social Cinema Bromley, which is the people that come along to the films, because without them there wouldn't be a cinema. So it's that human connection, it's what brings people together. It's about being seen, it's about being heard, it's about being validated, and I think it's just about being part of something in any capacity that somebody wants to be a part of it. Some people, they come up, they see a film, and then they go, and they don't ever talk to us. But they're getting out of it what they want. Some people come and they talk and they say hello, and we have a chat, and everybody is treated as an absolute equal in that space. And it's wonderful to see.
Yes, indeed. And how do you choose your films? The films that you show, what are you aiming for in emotional impact, education?
I said a few moments ago that, Kevin, Kevin and I have made, we've bumbled along and we've made mistakes and things like that. And we went through a process where we would literally be sitting in a coffee shop or the pub, and we said, well, what films are we going to show? And we'd scratch our head with pencil. We don't know. Because we weren't sure in the formative days, when Social Cinema Bromley was just a little baby thing. We weren't really sure when it grew up what it was going to look like. But what seems to have happened, and we have two venues in Bromley. One is over in Penge, which is Southey Brewing Company, and then the other one is Wickham Theatre Centre, which is in West Wickham. And both of them, as venues, meet the criteria that we want to operate to, which is that it's got social space, it's got a bar that people can have a drink, it's got space where people can socialise, which is really important to us. And what seems to have happened is that the demographics for both places are quite distinct. So the programming we set for both venues are based on the demographics of the people that would ordinarily go to those places. Wickham Theatre Centre is a little bit more heritage films, maybe some of the old classics, some newer films that would possibly speak to more traditional film goer, whereas Southey Brewing Company are a little bit more art house, a little bit more cult classics that you would show. And that's not to say that you wouldn't have a crossover between the two, because we have people that come to both venues. But that tends to be how we divide our programming. So we show films because of our status as a cinema, and we're registered with Film London and Cinema for All. We're kind of way down the pecking list when it comes to new releases. So we have to wait 3 or 4 months sometimes for the new releases to come through. So we're not going to be showing them. But we try and show films that wouldn't ordinarily be shown in cinemas anymore, really, which speaks to the bit I was talking about at the top of our conversation, which was around choice. I know that, you know, we've got two Odeons and a View in Bromley, and I'm pretty certain that if I was to have a look at the program for one of them right now, it would be the same program for the other two because they all show the same films. We want to show films that are slightly different. So we made a conscious decision, as an example, when it came to our Christmas programming, and our first film at Wickham Theatre Centre was our Christmas film. It was when we first started there, because that came online a little bit later. Kevin and I sat and had a chat about what we would show, and we could have gone down the route, It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Carol, Trading Places, Die Hard, but all of the other cinemas show them all of the time. So we went with another classic which rarely gets a showing, which was The Holly and the Ivy. And it's a brilliant 1950s British Christmas film with Celia Johnson, and people loved it. And I know that wasn't shown in any other cinema in Bromley in the run up to Christmas. And that was a selling point,
Yeah.
because any of the other films we showed, you could have gone and seen them anywhere. So
Yeah.
we try and keep it slightly different. And we do, as Social Cinema Bromley is probably a bit of a toddler now, is we try and think about curating our programs with a little bit more care and thinking about how will this appeal to somebody. So we try to look for entertainment. We try to look for something that's a little bit different. We try to look for something that we think would appeal to the demographic that we're showing to. So we had over in Penge, the last film we showed in Penge, because we're just on a summer break with them now, was Honora. Mikey Madison won the Best Actress Oscar this year for that film, and there was three chaps that come along to the film, and he said, one of them, I was chatting to one of them, and he said, "I'd love to see With Nail and I again." He said, "I've not seen it on the big screen for years." Like, right, we'll show that in September. It's a cult classic. It has a huge following. We'll put it on the screen for you, and so that's what we're going to do. So we that's what drives our programming, and we want to look more at maybe developing seasons and particular themes around some of our films. So it's a mixture of entertainment, understanding the demographics, and thinking about what's going to appeal really.
Is there a film or a scene that you come back to when you need grounding or perspective?
There is, and I'm gonna try and talk about this without getting emotional. But there absolutely is a film that sits there and then just sets its. I can feel myself getting quite emotional talking about it, and it is, for me, it is an absolute work of art, and it is the most beautiful film that has ever been produced, and that's Cinema Paradiso, and it is just an absolute love letter to film, and everything about it, the score, the characters, the storyline is just utter perfection. And for me, I think the cinema peaked when that film was released, and we're actually showing it as part of a small summer film season that we've got coming up in July, and it's the middle film. We've got 3 consecutive nights of film, and it's the middle film that we're showing. And I never saw it on the big screen. I've only ever seen it at home, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But it's astonishing, and it it's a work of art. If it were a statue, it'd be Michelangelo's David. If it was a work of art, it'd be the Sistine Chapel. For me, it's just the pinnacle of movie making. It is absolutely superb. Have you ever seen it?
No, I'm just going. This was my second question to you. That if you could summarize it for someone who hasn't watched this particular film, or would like to know a little bit more about it.
So no, I'm not going to give any spoilers. So the film is shot. The film is shot in a retrospective manner. So
Hmm.
it opens with it's an Italian film, so it's subtitled, and the film opens with a middle-aged Italian film director who lives in the big city and has got the lovely life with a beautiful girlfriend, and everything's lovely. And he gets a call from his mother, who he hasn't seen for years and years and years, to say that his friend has died,
Hmm.
and he has to go back for the funeral. But so then the film moves on, and it's him in the present day traveling back to his hometown, and then the film is shot through his memories from when he was a young boy to growing up, and his relationship with the cinema projectionist. Uh, and he was a young boy who lived with his mother. It's very clear that His father died in the war, wasn't coming home, and this lad was a bit of a scallywag and a bit of a tearaway, but he develops this relationship with the cinema projectionist, who was a grumpy old man,
Mm.
and he then becomes a bit of a pseudo father figure for him. It's just, and it's the characters in the village, and the village is, the cinema. The cinema becomes, much to the annoyance of the local priest, the cinema is the social hub, and the priest carefully screens all of the new releases. So any flash of an ankle or a slightly risque kiss, he has cut out the films because he doesn't want the locals corrupted. There's very much a comedy element to it, but it's
Mm.
just watching how they all interact together, and then directors, it's kind of as he reflects back on his life and how he ended up where he was. A remarkable film.
And that is going to be aired on the 16th
Yeah,
of July.
that's correct. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so I think I should better buy a ticket and come along.
Yeah, come along, because it's yeah, it's astonishing film. So that's, and if I'm feeling slightly, if life is feeling slightly overwhelming, and I just need some time out, then that's the film I reach for.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
What have been some of the challenges of building social cinema, and what kept you going? You did mention a few,
Mm.
but if you have to give us a summary.
Yeah, we it has been difficult. It hasn't been all plain sailing. I think the two biggest issues were, one, establishing ourselves, and we were very reliant in the early days on ticket sales.
Mhm.
And there were a few times when we made a loss on what we were doing, but because we did the crowdfunder, we were able to, kind of put on our big boy pants and say, right, okay, that's okay, we can do this, because
Mm.
we need to get a bit of publicity here, and we're going to keep going at it. And then lots of plugging away across social media and adverts, and just putting the word out there constantly, hectoring people and badgering them. Will you buy a ticket? And then we saw the scales begin to tip slightly,
Mm.
but it took a lot of hard work. I mean, really just pushing constantly to get the word out there and to publicize ourselves in what is particularly with community-based initiatives,
Mm.
um, until you start digging down into how many community groups there are. They're all so necessary, but there's a lot of them, and you kind of, to try and carve out a niche for yourself in that space was really difficult. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of pounding the pavements, going out, doing lots of handshaking, meeting people, bit of PR work, lots of social media work, trying to establish our brand. And that was in the early days. We were really trying to get volunteers on board. Um, that's proved a constant struggle.
Mm.
But we're finally, again, I think for a long time it was kind of just Kevin and I,
Mm.
just kind of pushing forward with that. But I think now we're very slowly starting to see it, just the balance is starting to tip, with people that are kind of like yourself, that are coalescing around it, and that we're creating some partnerships in a very different space. And we've got more people coming forward that are slightly more interested in helping. And that was quite challenging to try and do all of that on our own. Really, we were doing everything from trying to think about fundraising initiatives, thinking of, we had I guess one of the successes, but equally one of the challenges, is the number of people that we had approaching us and were still approaching us. I had an email yesterday: can you come and show cinema for us? We want you to help us with this, or can you please come over here and show us films? And would you like to use this space? And we've got our two venues, and Kevin and I have been having to say, we can't. We just don't have the capacity to do it, because we recognise that any new venue, it's almost as if we're launching our own franchise again. We see that we're building up our customer base with the two venues that we have. If we would start somewhere new, we'd kind of have to start all of that again.
Mm.
And it's like, we want to consolidate what we have already and build on what we have, rather than try and spread ourselves too thin. I mean, it would be lovely to
Mm.
have branches of Social Cinema Bromley all over the place, but it wouldn't work. it really wouldn't work. It would probably be our undoing
Mm.
because we wouldn't be able to sustain it. We would invest, what little money we do have, we'd invest into it, and we'd probably lose it. And we've got our two babies in Penge and West Wickham, and we're looking after them and we're nurturing them, and they deserve our attention rather than expand it out. But it's a little bit frustrating because you really want to do it and you kind of think, "Oh, it could be great." But the reality is it would be really, really challenging. But it's a shame because also what it shows us is that there is a need for it, right?
Yeah.
There is a real need for it. And some of the people that have reached out to us it's been based around, can you come to our community and do something because we have high levels of deprivation here and our families can't get to the cinemas and we can't go. We can't do it because we don't have the capacity and resource to do it. And it's a real shame because that's what we exist for.
Yeah.
It's so yeah.
Well, my next question, perhaps, is related to what you've just said. What do you think the local systems often miss when it comes to using art or film for health and well-being?
So I think I'm gonna answer this question from the perspective of somebody with lived experience of mental health problems, which I'm more than comfortable to do. So about 2.5 years ago, I had a really difficult time with my mental health, and I was off work, and things were a real struggle. And my GP, as part of a package of kind of pushing me forward into different systems to try and get me help, one of them was social prescribing, and said, "Can I refer you to the social prescriber in the surgery?" I said, "Absolutely, that's great." And I was really interested. I'm not particularly artistic in terms of, art and drawing and all the rest of it, but I was particularly interested in exploring something like that from a social prescribing perspective because I think it can be very mindful. I've done adult colouring books before. They're great for just losing yourself in that moment and just being very mindful and focusing in on something. So I was really interested in exploring what might be open to me as middle-aged man who was struggling with his mental health, who didn't just want to rely on medication purely, but who wanted to seek other forms of support. So I went, yeah, great, let's do social prescribing. I spoke to this lovely woman and she said, let me send you these details and you can link in with them and maybe go along to some groups and things. Fabulous. Yeah, let's do this. And within the week, I'd had the information and I'd looked at it all and I couldn't do any of it because I was back at work. I work full time and all of the groups, everything that was offered was during working hours. And I spoke to the social prescriber in the surgery and I said, well, I can't do any of it. It's one thing to take time out for health appointments for work. It's another thing to do that one afternoon a week to go and do arts and crafts. There's a balance to be struck here. There's nothing in the evenings. There's nothing available for people that work full time. And she was extremely sympathetic with it. So I know, what can I do? And I think it really missed a trick. And I think there is a lot to be said for the power of community. And I think it's not. I think in some respects, and I'm probably straying into territory here that I don't want to go running down too many rabbit holes, but I think it's possible through what is offered through local health and social care systems. There's almost that they can't win because somebody is going to be marginalised somewhere along the line, be it through digital exclusion, through lack of internet resources, lack of technology, or not being able to attend something because they work, or not being able to attend something because they're economically excluded. Is really frustrating. And I think that when we look at the impact of social isolation and loneliness and how that will just pull people further and further down into the depths, that if we can, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, if we can look at and explore avenues that open things up like Social Cinema Bromley and say, look, we're not going to exclude you on the basis of finances or what it is. We want to make it as accessible for people as possible. We recognise we're marginalising some people because of the locations we go to. But I think it's about creating more choice and saying, well, okay, so there's something here that we can do with this through film, through the arts, through culture, that will bring people together in a space that is almost a great leveler. And it's almost, and what we've said to people in the past is when you watch a film, it's almost like trying to understand, everybody's interpretation of that film will be different, but none of them will be wrong. So take from it what you will, and then but be a part of what's happening in that space. So I think local systems do miss a trick through what they're offering. I think there is an argument that for people who are excluded from mainstream society, that sometimes the services that are on offer don't always help with that, as I found that I'm being excluded on the basis of the fact that I work full time. How is that accessible for people? Because I won't be the only one. So I think inadvertently what we're trying to do through the cinema is offer that alternative
Mhm.
as well.
Well, my next question was related to that. What do you hope people after they've been to your films, what do you hope people would feel after viewing your films or being to one of your events?
My hope is that they come away being very impressed by the warmth with which they were met, and by the whole experience of having an evening out that isn't just kind of walk into a cinema, see a film, and then leave again, but it's the whole thing from the minute they walk through the door and they're welcomed and they're greeted. Kevin and I will try and I don't like to use the word network because that sounds very corporate, but we try and you know, talk to people and have a chat with them and meet with them and just welcome them and make them feel as if they're a part of more than just a cinema event. So we hope that they go away feeling as if that they were personally welcomed, almost as if we would love it if they were to go away and feel that if they were the only person there, they would still have that same experience. And that it's something that they're connected with and that they feel a part of. We do curate our films now with an awful lot of care because we want them to be accessible to people and to be, a broad church of genres and different styles of filmmaking, and that people feel that this did me good. I want to come back to this. And we have, we've had various examples of, small successes where old friends who haven't seen each other for years have met at some of our films, where people have started WhatsApp groups based on people they've met, and that it's extended beyond that. A lot of, the feedback we had at one of the films we've shown recently was, this is the best night out I've had in a long time. So we get it. And I think if I can just be selfish for a little bit and probably blow our own trumpet slightly, but there was one evening when we were watching a film, and I think it was Alfie, the old Michael Caine film, which is a great movie if you've not seen it. And Kevin and I were stood at the back of the cinema, and we had nearly a full house that night. We'd sold nearly all of our tickets. Um, and there was one moment, there was a comedy moment in the film, and everybody laughed.
Hmm.
And you kind of think, I did that. Obviously I didn't make people laugh, but the fact that we organised that for people to come along and have a good time, and they all laughed and they all found it funny, and there was that shared moment where everybody in that room were laughing at the same thing. And that's what's so special about it. To know that, I don't take any pride from it myself, but to know that we organised that and that they were there because we organised it.
Yeah.
That's just a little tiny win for us. And we do. I give a talk at the beginning of each film. Um,
Okay.
I try not to hog the limelight too much, and neither is it really based around much audience interaction. But I do try and, you know, have a laugh and a joke with people. Ask, has anyone been here before? And you've been to every film, you've been to more films than I have, and just to try and focus in on people and just
Yeah.
recognise, say, I see you, you're here, remarkable.
So if this podcast was played back 10 years from now, what would you want your message to be to the people listening?
In 10 years' time,
Hmm.
well, if Social Cinema Bromley doesn't go global, and we keep our feet on the ground, I think it would be to look back and look at the lessons that we've learned through this and understand that, alongside social institutions such as the church, theatre, cinema, pubs, restaurants, community groups, whatever they might be, but those social institutions that have stood the test of time. I think it's to probably don't think about it too much and just do it. It would be very easy with the state of cinema and film and the way we consume that media. And don't get me wrong, I mean, if I was relying on this to make a living, I would be in big trouble because there is no money in it. So I can sit here from the comfort of this room, having a full-time job that is the one that's paying the bills. This is a hobby. If I was relying on this, then I would be saying something very different. But actually, I think it's to be able to say, okay, so why would we try and start a cinema in a space that is saturated with cinema already? Can't think off the top of my head how many screens we have in Bromley. I mean, there's 9 at the View. I don't know how many the two Odeons have got between them, in addition to the streaming services that now show the films. Why would you start a cinema? And you're right, I would not start a cinema based on making a profit. Wouldn't happen. But what we have seen is that actually we're kind of. Do you remember a few years ago? And I'm not saying this with any political ilk. A few years ago, I think at probably one of the G8 or the G7 summits, when all the world leaders were gathering for a photograph, and there was one American president who elbowed his way to the front because he wanted to be. I'm not saying that Social Cinema Bromley is like Donald Trump, but what I'm saying is that in a crowded market of some really big players, we've been bold enough to elbow our way in and say, hang on a minute, we want a seat at this table as well. And it's worked. I sometimes, boast about what SCB does, and I say, well, you know what, we've sold 100% of our tickets tonight. Bet the other cinemas have. And, the numbers are very small, but we've still sold 100% of our tickets, and we're really proud of that. We've over in Penge, I think the last 3 films we've shown have been complete sellouts. We were involved in the 5th anniversary celebrations for the Local Government Act, and when Bromley became a borough 60 years ago, Penge held a series of small events over there to recognise it, and we were a part of that. And we showed a small film. It's called The Portrait of Penge, and rights are held by the BFI. It's only 30 minutes long. We had to put on extra screenings because we were oversubscribed for people wanting to come along and see it. And then what that did was for the brewery that brew their own beer, which is remarkable beer, by the way, the woman working behind the bar that evening, I don't think she thanked us, but on what would ordinarily be a quiet Thursday night, had 40, 50 additional people walk through the door. And that's about saying that we did it because we wanted to show that film, and the benefit from that is right there in front of you in that, that brewery is getting more recognition. So I think for us to elbow our way into this and say, look, we're here as well. We patch ourselves as Bromley's newest cinema because we want to be taken seriously. And I would say that with some creativity and looking at what it needs, if somebody's listening to this in 10 years' time, you can find that way through. And I don't have, as I was saying earlier, I don't have any ambition or aspiration to be a world-leading cinema brand. Absolutely not. But I think I want to be the best at what we do in Bromley. And I think given who has reached out to us and given the impact we're having, and we are having an impact, I'm going to be bold and say I think we're doing better than the mainstream cinemas. Are we making a profit? Are we selling out hundreds? No. But actually, what we want to do, we're doing very well, and we're really proud of that. So that's what I would. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Rob, it's so beautiful having that intention of connecting people. That intention in itself is so empowering, and for you to come onto this podcast and expressing that openly gives energy.
Mm,
It has given me the energy, and I'm sure it will give the viewers the energy too.
mm,
Rob, thank you for sharing your story and helping us see how films can be so much more than entertainment. To our listeners, if you have been moved by today's episode, or if you know someone who would benefit from the kind of magic Rob and Kevin are creating through Social Cinema Bromley,
yeah.
please share this episode. Stay with us at Home Circle Bromley as we continue to spotlight those creating the change, both big and small, for our community. Until next time, keep connecting, keep caring, and remember, every story matters.